All right. I'm hoping you guys can hear me. And if you can or can't, please let me know. I don't know, you can type in a comment. So hopefully this is working. I'll wait a while here if I get a comment. That'd be really nice. Can you guys hear me? Let me see. All right, can you guys hear me now? Hopefully somebody comments here. I am hoping I am on. Yes, okay, great, awesome, wonderful. Thanks, guys. All right, so I'm going to start, and I know that if you have any questions while I'm um, doing this, I want to make sure that you guys let me know, because definitely we're going to cover a lot of material. And when it comes to gut health, I want to first talk about a little bit why I am so passionate about this. And many of you may or may not know me, so I'm going to share my screen here. So let me just hold on. All right, so I'm Dr. Rosie Main, and some of you are patients of mine. Some of you may be watching just here. So I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I have an office in Meridian called Main Health Solutions, and I've been there for 20 years and have loved working there physically with patients. But here recently, last year, I started a virtual practice as well called Main Holistic Health, where I get to coach people around the country, even in Mexico, and my Spanish patients and virtually have benefited a lot from just the information that we get to share with them, so that they can also implement these changes that I get to talk about in my office. And so it's been awesome to see how God's used just this information to empower people across the country. And so I am blessed. I have a passion to serve athletes too. I'm the team chiropractor for USA Wrestling. And last year, I became a best-selling author on Amazon. I wrote the Dr. Rosie's Mexiquito Kitchen. So just a little bit about me and why I have a lot of passion on this topic specifically is this is how I got to chiropractic. I unfortunately was struck with what's called Crohn's, and I was in pre-med. I was in San Antonio, and unfortunately, you know, got diagnosed with Crohn's all of a sudden after being a bodybuilder, thinking that I was at my healthiest at that point, and unfortunately, um, lost like 20 to 30 pounds within 2 weeks. It was one of those situations where everything I would eat, it wouldn't do good with me. I would get just a lot of cramping. And sometimes would have to just rush to the bathroom immediately after I ate. So it was very embarrassing. And at one point, I couldn't even come off the floor. I was buckled down because of all the intestinal pain. And so my boyfriend at that time rushed me to the hospital, and they thought it was appendicitis. And the doctor went in there, took out my appendix, but when they went in there, it wasn't my appendix. He took it out anyways, but they found a whole section of my gut that was raw. And when I came to after the surgery, he's like, we haven't done it yet, but you're going to need to resect a certain of your colon because you have Crohn's disease. And so I thought I was at my healthiest, but yet my body was failing inside. And with bodybuilding at that point, it was all about eating all the wrong things. And so unfortunately, with stress of school, probably from also my mom at that point, I was traveling back and forth. She was very sick. She's now passed away, but caring for her from long distance and having to travel every weekend, I think that everything did me in. So stress, the lifestyle I was having, and it was one of those things that it's a God thing. I think the circumstances in our life are for a reason. I actually, at that point, went back to Brownsville. My dad came to pick me up, and he was going to take me to a doctor, maybe in Mexico, something. But luckily, my cousin, who I appreciate so much, was working for a chiropractor and said, "Why don't you go visit my chiropractor?" And I was like, "Well, this is not a chiropractic thing because I don't have back pain." But she's like, "No, you don't understand. There's a philosophy that your body has the potential to heal, and he's going to tell you about this." And so, sure enough, went to go visit him, and he starts telling me, that God put an amazing power in our body to heal. And I had never heard this, as far as, I always thought that health came from a drug or a pill and he says, no, the fact is your body can heal this. You just need to remove the interference. And so he started to show me, what chiropractic is removing the interferences, of course, physically in the nervous system. And that's why I love chiropractic, because the nerves from your spine have a lot to do with the organs of your body. It's actually what controls your health. For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for you to even digest food, your body has to have a properly functioning nervous system. So of course, he started working with me. Started to change my diet, get rid of those interferences, not only physically, but nutritionally. And at the end of that summer, I said, I need to go to chiropractic school. And so that's the story. I mean, basically, that's when I went to the closest chiropractic school in Dallas and graduated there and met my husband. Now I'm in Idaho, and that's why I am here in Idaho, and I love it. But definitely, this is where I begin, because this is what I'm going to talk to you is some of the things that I've been, with being diagnosed and getting better, I still have had to remain faithful with the diet and everything that I continuously have to do on a daily basis to not bring these things back, because I do have a weakness, and unfortunately that's my gut health. My sugars also get affected with stress, so I have to continuously work on my health. So these are some of the signs and symptoms that most people have when they have gut dysfunction. We see a lot of times with gut issues, it's going to affect almost everything when it comes to your nervous system health, your brain health. Your gut and your brain are so related, and so we see a lot of times people have issues with depression, anxieties. But when you have gut issues, you're also going to have sensitivities, immune problems. We have people who come in with autoimmune problems such as Hashimoto's, even diabetes type 2, type 1. We have people with issues with the fact that they have joint pain and chronic conditions such as fibromyalgia. And these diagnoses we call the new millennium diseases that are typically all associated with even not gut issues only, but biotoxins, parasites, mold, you name it, Lyme, and also heavy metals. And so this is where we know that it's not going to be a quick fix, but if we can just get you to start removing the interferences one step at a time, to allow your body to function the way God designed you to live and heal, that's going to be the biggest intent today. And so we want to talk about how your gut functions, because we have a microbiome, which is basically bacteria in our gut. And I'm going to be talking fast here, so let me know if you have any questions throughout this. But you have a microbiome that has good bacteria and bad bacteria in your gut and in your body. And the problem is you get what's called dysbiosis. And I really think that this is what happened to me when I was in undergrad and this occurred, is I had gone to a dentist and he gave me lots of antibiotics. And unfortunately, I think that that's what stirred this up, that my microbiome became unbalanced, where you have good bacteria and bad bacteria, but when you kill off the good bacteria, your bad gut microbes override. So we all have parasites, we all have these bacteria and things in our gut that produce toxins. And so when you don't have enough of the good bacteria, the bad bacteria overrides, and then that's when you get that inflammation that stirs the pot. And so then that's whenever we start seeing a lot of problems with that inflammation, causing a issue with the gut lining. So this is a picture of like the carpet of your, I call it the carpet, but of your gut lining. And so you have, and I don't know if you can see my pointer here, probably not, but you have a gel-like substance, and you can see it on top of these little fibers on the very top. You have these cells. So in these cells here, you have these little fibers at the very top. And if you can see, you have a jelly-like kind of substance on the very top. And that's a normal mucosa of the gut lining. And so these cells have tight gaps. And so they're like zipped up together. And then inside the gut lining, then you have internally some of the internal, like in the intestines, some of the products in there. So the mitochondria, all the other stuff from those cells in there. But what happens is when you have so much inflammation, that mucosa gets sloughed off, per se. That carpet, that little white villi we call, gets trampled on, kind of like a carpet gets trampled on. And then it will create issues with the cells that are stacked together. They become literally unzipped. And so then that's going to allow undigested food from your intestines to pass through these cells in between into the bloodstream. And so when undigested cells pass into the bloodstream of undigested proteins, your body's defenses, your immunity will then actually go and see these undigested particles as foreign. And so then you're going to get what's going to be called an immune response, where your body is going to go and try to attack those undigested particles, and you get a hyperactivity of this immune system. So therefore, you get this autoimmune reaction when your body then starts producing too much of a good thing, and it starts to attack itself, starts to attack your weak spots, typically, like for some people, to me, like your joints. So you'll have all this inflammation in your joints all of a sudden whenever you have these bad foods. So the next day you eat something like gluten, or you eat something like just these foods that are very high in inflammation, and you're gonna see these responses. You're gonna see a response in the way your body's functioning. And so this is what happens. And so what we need to do when we have gut issues is go back and heal that cell wall, that lining, that membrane. And the whole intent of what we try to do is we think of it like a scab, like if you get cut, you get a scab. And it's, if you tear off that scab because you're always putting all these bad things, it starts to bleed again. So basically what I'm going to tell you, and the protocols we're going to talk to you right now, is about healing the cell lining. And it takes, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to take about a month at least to heal this cell lining. Some people don't like to hear this, but you're going to need to get rid of some foods, even good foods, for a little bit of while, that are causing this inflammation. And so the body again has the ability to heal itself, but you got to allow it to do that. And so many times we introduce this stuff called fasting, and we're going to talk about a bone broth fast, or a water fast, or even an apple cider vinegar water fast for a while. Just basically to allow the body to mend, you have to get rid of the irritation, and sometimes that's even eating. And so we need to fast. So we'll talk about that. But basically that's the start. So if you have any questions right now, this is the time to ask if you have anything that from what I've covered so far. So these are the common digestive symptoms we see whenever there is inflammation. You're going to get, of course, a lot of gas. Sometimes when you eat some of these foods, you're going to get a lot of bloating because of the gas. And so sometimes as soon as you eat, you have this bloating that occurs in people where they look pregnant right there and then. You'll have people who have these from the bloating, the cramping, the colic. We see it in kids sometimes when they're having things like dairy that irritates their bowels. You're going to see that the most, sensitive foods is going to be either dairy, it's going to be gluten. I'm going to say grain altogether, not even gluten. Sometimes people kind of go into eating a low gluten diet, but really grain is the biggest issue. Most grain now is, just messed up on Satan. I mean, basically, it's literally changed, no longer grain anymore. So, but some foods, like we call the FODMAP diet, some foods are very they cause a lot of irritation, some fructose and some fruits and some vegetables. So we're going to talk about those. But we see that this inflammation, like we talked about, is creating issues with people who are very sensitive to like almost even touch. So fibromyalgia is just a diagnosis that gets slapped onto people, and they have no other hope other than to take a depression drug or an anxiety drug instead of looking at the true causes of what's causing these issues. So we get people that come in and say that they have chronic fatigue. Again, God doesn't make junk. And if there's interferences and there's inflammation, just because you get slapped with a diagnosis called chronic fatigue, we want to find out what's causing that, not just, succumb to just the diagnosis and then even get put on a stinking drug. So we got to go back and see what we can do to start changing this. And this is what's beautiful right now. We have the power to start healing our body. And even with this whole, I'm going to just get in a little rant right now, but even with this whole COVID time, most people have succumbed to the idea that we are weak, that somehow God forsake us. But we have a power to do for ourselves to build our body up, build our immunity that comes from our gut, our immune system. And if we heal our body internally, our body can succumb, and can overcome a lot of these bad viruses and stuff. But we got to remember that we have to be responsible for our health. It's not from an outside in, and I'm not telling you not to wash your hands or not to wear a mask. That's totally up to you. But health comes from within, not from without. Your body already has the ability to heal from within, but you got to give the body things that it needs to start functioning better. And so this is where we have to build up our health from within. And so that's what we want to talk about. But sometimes all these bad bacteria start to actually eat up some of the nutrients we even take in, like even the vitamins and the minerals and like B12, sometimes we can't even absorb it because of the bad bacteria. So first we have to remove the cause and the inflammation and start to kind of like tear up and then build up. And so that's what we want to talk about. And that's what we see a lot of times with people who, with Crohn's like me, I couldn't absorb fats anymore. That's why I lost like 20 or 30 pounds, because when I would go to the bathroom, everything that would come out was just fat. My body wasn't absorbing this because it was so inflamed. Things would just rush out like diarrhea, and it wasn't absorbing any of the nutrients that I was even trying to put in at that point. Probably not the best kind of nutrients, but it wasn't absorbing it. So, so moving on to the next slide. If I can here, oh man, sometimes this thing gets stuck. Hold on. So there we go. So this is, again, just talking about the rich and balanced bacterial communities. That's what we want to have, but sometimes we have an imbalance or dysbiosis causing immune issues. So these are, again, the symptoms that we typically see as people who have headaches, who have nausea, the bloating, the diarrhea, the constipation. And on the bottom, you see the typical things that most people are prone to get these kind of food sensitivities from. Peanuts, things that have a lot of mold, casein in milk, and we see this a lot with kids with autism. I see a lot of issues with, it's not lactose intolerance, it's a casein in the milk, but just toxic foods, sometimes like ocean, the bottom feeders like crabs, shrimp, grain. So getting rid of that. So this is another picture that talks about those cells. If you see the intestinal mucosa, they should have these tight junctions. But when you have so much inflammation, you get these junctions that unzip. And so it creates issues with undigested foods to seep in. And so this is where this can be caused from antibiotics, from lots of bad protein, excess sugar, toxins, stress. Stress also does this, by the way. So right now, the last thing you want to be is stressed out, and just start handling your body with that. So when you get gut dysbiosis in the small intestine, which is the upper part of your gut, you have your stomach, which has hydrochloric acid to digest food. Then you have your small intestine, which has lots of enzymes to then break down the protein. But you get this gut dysbiosis, that membrane can't secrete the enzymes. And so then before you know it, you're not digesting that protein, so your body starts to produce lots of gas. So you get what's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. So you see a lot of people who belch, or hydrochloric acid, acid reflux. You see people who have issues then from gas, and so they're either have a lot of flatulence, and so so it just starts to ruin the whole intestinal lining bit by bit. So what do we do to start healing this? And so this is the summary. We're going to go step by step, but we have 3 phases. And I know that the first phase is probably the hardest part. There's 3 to 5 days that we're going to talk about the reset phase. This is going to be including a fast, and typically uses either bone broth, herbal teas, some apple cider vinegar, water that we're going to talk about. But I'm going to go back to the screen here. Hold on. Okay, there you go. So, if you guys, this right here is going to be your saving grace. If you guys don't have apple cider vinegar, what I love about this protocol is a lot of it is just food. It's I mean, you can use some supplements that we'll talk about, but if you can just start with food, I think that's the best thing. But what we do with the first 3 to 5 days, and the first 3 to 5 days, I have a video online, and I'm going to try to put it on, and I hope I don't lose you guys. But basically, it's going to be apple cider vinegar water. I wake up in the morning. The first thing you do is you make yourself a glass of water. I typically do a 16-ounce glass, and I put about 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, about half a lemon, and I put a little bit of stevia to sweeten it up. And then what happens is allows your body to take this acid to start breaking down biofilm. Biofilm is basically that bad bacteria that we need to break up. So again, you're going to be starting to do that. Then we're going to want to start adding, I'm going to share this video and see if you can see it here. Hold on. And let me know if you can even hear it. Can you guys hear that? Can you hear it? No volume. Okay, so that's going to be an issue. Okay, so let me just stop this then. Right, I'm just going to stop this. All right, going back to me. So I'll stop sharing that. Okay, so what I was sharing there, can you hear me back again? Tell me yes or no. Can you hear me now? Hopefully. No? Can you hear me? No? The problem with this technology. Can you hear me now? Yes, awesome. Okay, so what I was sharing there was how to make a bone broth, but I'll give you a recipe here. Really, what you can do is either chicken or grass-fed meat. Again, this bone broth has to be made with 100% grass-fed bone or 100% free-range chicken. And it's boiled. So the carcass of the chicken or the bone. I like oxtail bone, and you can go to like a butcher from like Boise Co-op or Whole Foods and ask them for oxtail grass-fed bone. And so you take a crock pot and you put it in water, and filtered water, and you're going to boil this. If you're going to do a crock pot, you're going to do that for like maybe 8 hours. If you're going to be making this from a Instapot, it's probably half the time, 4 hours. But the the thing is, you have to add again apple cider vinegar, like about maybe 2 tablespoons, so that it can leach all the minerals from the bone. And so what happens when you boil this, and you're going to season it, you want to season it with like pepper and sea salt. And you can add, I love adding cloves of garlic, love garlic in there. And I'll even add some, some cumin. I don't know if you guys like cumin, but I like it. It's going to add some flavor to the broth, because if you never had bone broth, you want to add some spices to spice it up, like warm soup. So you're basically getting all the nutrients out of the bone by boiling it. And so then the cartilage of the bone actually, will slough off. And so it's going to make about maybe like 4 quarts, that amount. And so then from there, you're going to reuse those bones. So you don't go throw those bones and you do it again, because it's going to have more stuff in there. So you want to, continue to make these jars. So you go get some glass jars, and you're going to do this because you have to do this for about 3 to 5 days. So you want to keep as much of that broth in there, so that this is what you're going to eat. You're going to eat bone broth and apple cider vinegar, water, and herbal teas really for 3 to 5 days, to allow your body to have time to heal the membrane of your gut. Does that make sense? Hopefully. But you can always go to YouTube and look up that video. I have my Main Health Solutions YouTube channel, and I have that bone broth video in one of those videos. You can always watch it later. So going back to my screen here, my PowerPoint, hold on. Go on here and add my screen. Just gotta love this technology. I'm getting used to this. I'm so used to doing talks at my office, but just bear with me. There we go. Awesome. Can you guys see that? Okay, so I'm gonna move on with the next slide, because I know that that's kind of a lot of information there, but I'm really breaking this down for you, so don't fret. So hold on. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. So any questions I can answer for right now. Oh, thank you, George. So George, one of my staff team members, he's awesome. He put the YouTube link to that bone broth fast, so you can see that after the video. We'll share this and be able to do that. So, okay, so 5 main causes of bloating. Again, we already talked about that. So while we're doing the fast for 5 days, okay, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to clean out other things that help you detox. So you're healing your body. So after the 3rd or 4th day, I want you to do what's called a Hulda Clark gallbladder cleanse. So we want to heal the liver, and we want to also get the gallbladder sludge. The gallbladder produces some bile, and we want to get rid of some of the sludge. And so with the reset, and again, all of this we're going to be walking you through with some PDFs afterwards. If you email me, I'll email you all this information. But the next step is to clean the liver and the gallbladder. So we do an apple cider vinegar and a grapefruit and lemon juice kind of concoction with Epsom salt. And so what it does is it dissolves these gallstones that help clean out that gallbladder. So we talk about cleaning that, and we also do some coffee enemas. So this is the reset phase. Okay, this is the beginning. You're cleaning everything out. You're doing the bone broth, and at the very end, you do a Hilda gallbladder flush. and I can send you that protocol. And then at the end, you do a coffee enema. I know it sounds crazy, but what happens if you think of it as a funnel? So your body is going to be detoxing. You got to clear out the funnel. If the funnel on the very bottom is clogged and you're getting rid of toxins, they have nowhere to go but inside. So your body then starts to have a sick response if you're not going to clear out the coffee enema, and the gallbladder flush clears out that funnel, kind of like Drano does to a toilet. So you have to kind of get your colon moving. So the coffee enema will help clean out some of the sludge. We also get people on activated charcoal, which will help bind some of those toxins out and help the liver, because your liver is going to be responsible for taking out all these toxins. And if you are so backed up, your body's not going to like it. So all these toxins then try to go out your skin. So you get what's called a Herx response. A Herx response is when you get welts on your skin because your body tries to get rid of these toxins through your skin. So basically, you do have to, during this reset, you're healing your intestines, you're getting your body to get rid of all these toxins, getting your bowels to move. You need to move those bowels. If your bowels aren't moving, everything is stuck in there, is not good. So that's the reset phase, okay? So that's about 3 to 5 days, sometimes even 10 days for some people, but I always just aim for 3 to 5 days, okay? If you are scared of fasting, I know that many times people fear fasting. One of those things with fasting is that you have to prepare emotionally and get your mindset right. And this is where you have to get to a point where it's not about you. That right now is the best time to do this, guys, because some of you are at home, you have nothing else to do, you're not working, and this is the best time to heal. So this is when you start to have time to do this. You're at home, but you have to do it for something way bigger than you. Now, I don't know if you guys know my story. I lost my mom prematurely from diabetes here 2 years ago, my sister from diabetes, and now my dad's in a nursing home from a stroke. So I know for a fact that it's hard when people are not feeling good. It's hard when people also have to depend on other people to care for them. And I'd love to be there again for my mom, my sister, and now even my dad. I can't even be there for my dad. And this is the thing, guys, is that you don't want to be in that place. Okay, so it's not about you. You have to get over you doing it for you, but you got to do it for others. And this is when your why is bigger than your how you do it, because it's important. It's important to God. He needs you, but also your family needs you. So this is about healing. Now, this is not going to be fun, but you're going to have to embrace this. I'm going to say it, embrace the suck. It is going to be hard, but hard is good. That's what I teach my kids. Sometimes hard is good because it also helps us overcome. And where you anchor to, and in my life, I don't know how people do it without God, but I anchor to his word. I remember when in Daniel, he fasted for 10 days, and he was stronger because his body was able to heal. So this is where you got to go back and anchor something bigger than you. Okay, so that's what all I got to say about that. But if you have questions on that, you can ask me. So, all right. So this is some other things. You need an accountability partner. I know when I do this, I do it with my husband. So we get on board together. Even my kids, I had one of my kids, and I won't tell my kids what to do, but one of them decided to fast with us one day. He did it one day, and I was so proud of him. I mean, the fact is that he didn't need to, but he just wanted to see if he could do it. And now he knows he can do this, you know what I mean? But he's 11 years old and he did it with us. But accountability partners, like an adult, like your husband, your friends, find somebody you're going to do this with. Another way to do this with fasting is you want to set goals. I say 3 to 5 days. If you can only do 1 or 2 days or 3 days, would be maybe you've already done this and you only did it for 1 day. Maybe try doing it for 2 or 3 days now. So this is a journey. So this is not going to happen over 1 month of doing this. Happens like you're seasonal. I do it like once every quarter. So you just start setting goals. Okay. So after you do the 3 to 5 days, and I don't see any questions here, so I'm going to move on. Then you're going to move into what's called the rebuild phase. And the rebuild phase is all about now putting some foods in, but the foods you're going to put in are basically going to be very digestible foods, lots of fat. A lot of this healing is going to come from fat and quality fat, like olive oil and coconut oil, and like quality fish, wild salmon. But this is when you're going to really focus in on fermented food. So I'm going to go back and hopefully you can see this. But like I love this brand of I don't know if you can see that, gut shots. So these are uh, basically kind of like a kombucha, but this is not a fermented. This is just fermented water and has lots of probiotics. Again, that's the mother, all this stuff like you see in apple cider vinegar. So gut shots has different flavors. This one here is from kimchi. You guys don't know what kimchi is. It's like sauerkraut. So sauerkraut, this kimchi we put like on top of a salad. Very good probiotics that you get from that. My favorite, also probiotic live shots. Again, you're adding lots of live food. So live fermented food. So again, you can take a probiotic, but it's never going to be like actually eating the actual food. So this one tastes really good, Korean and spicy. I get this you can find it at Boise Co-op, Whole Foods, and Natural Grocers. But this one's so good. I just take like a couple of shots, 3 shots of this a day. They even have, like, let's say you're going to have some eggs. You have this sriracha. People love sriracha. This right here is a great brand, and it's kind of spicy, but if you don't like spicy, that's up to you. You also have the rebuilding phase. You're putting a lot of live food. So can you guys see that? Hopefully you can see that. So this is kefir, and it's Redwood Hill Farms. Hopefully you can see that there. Tell me if you guys can see that. If not, I'll switch the thing. Okay. So this is kefir. Kefir is kind of like yogurt, but it's a watery, so you can actually drink this. So I'll take kefir. I'll put a little bit of vanilla extract and stevia, and mix it with, some sliced almonds. It's basically very good to eat with a spoon, or I'll drink it sometimes. So you guys know what kombucha is, probably, more than likely. Kombucha, you can make your own. This one's gingerade. So you can start adding fermented foods in that phase. Okay, so this is the next phase, the rebuilding. So now that you've cleaned the gut in the reset phase, you're rebuilding, you're putting all the good bacteria there. Again, this is dysbiosis from bad bacteria to good bacteria. So you're wanting to add that good bacteria back in. So again, from live foods, you can start taking prebiotics and probiotics. I don't have samples of that, but at the very end here, I'll give you a link of where you can get some of these probiotics. But I love live foods. If you can put sauerkraut on everything. So I start eating soft foods like eggs, boiled eggs at this point. You can continue the broth during this point. You can add the kefir. So it's going to be very little food for another 3 to 5 days. So by this time, it's 10 days. So you can continue doing the coffee enemas during this time. So you're going to be eating, but you're going to be eating more live foods and fermented live foods. That's what I mean by that. Any questions with that? Oh, you guys are quiet. Okay. So no questions. I'm going to move on to the next phase. So now you completed like about 10 days, okay, or 10 to 12 days. And raise your hand here or say yes if you've done something like this, because if you have any feedback, I want you guys to put it here. I think that this is the biggest thing if you've done something like this. So you're going to start adding some low FODMAP vegetables, and I'll talk about these foods are not going to irritate the body. There are foods that have a lot of irritants. They're called lectins. Plants have defending properties. Just like we have an immune system, plants also have an immune system, and some of them are there to kind of sway away bugs. So even plants will try to kill off bugs to not eat them. So anyways, lectins are found in some foods, but these foods here are good to start adding in that rebuild phase, in that second phase. So you can have like a pumpkin pudding. We do a pumpkin pudding for my kids with coconut milk and pumpkin, canned pumpkin or organic canned pumpkin, and spice it up with some cinnamon, some ginger, turmeric, and add some stevia. And so just one of those things. So I have a question here. I tried to do a water fast one day and I wanted food so bad. It was definitely a challenge. Yes, fasting is a challenge. So this is where the beautiful thing with this kind of fast is you're going to be able to have a bone broth fast, a chicken broth, bone broth fast. So it's kind of like if you're having a warm soup, but you're not going to have the meat of the soup. You're just going to have just the broth. So it's actually easier to do a bone broth fast. So the other thing, like we add the ginger to that, like I was talking about, olives you can add here. You can add some, some greens like green beans, kale, some radishes. So these foods are good to start adding, okay? And the reason I add that some vegetables have too much fructans and lactose and galactans, and this diagram here is that some vegetables just have lots of gassy production in our gut. And so sometimes when people eat some vegetables that are high in this stuff, it'll cause, again, bloating. So that's why I'd rather you pick those foods that I just talked about. Okay, this is what happens with symptoms of FODMAP problems. These foods that with lots of lectins, it creates that bloating, that gas. Okay, so try to stay away from those. So these are the ones that have excess. These are the ones to avoid. Okay, so don't add these. So of course, lots of sugary fruit, apple, mangoes. Now green apples are fine, but mangoes, watermelon, that stuff, sweeteners that are fake or even just toxic, like man-made, corn syrup, things like even at this point, honey is really good, but at this point, I would say don't add that for right now. Of course, dairy, you wouldn't want to add that during the rebuilding phase. So kefir is goat milk, okay? Kefir, specifically from goat milk, is fine. That's why I like this brown. Yogurt, some people add yogurt, but it's a dairy. So I'd rather you have a goat milk. And the reason goat milk versus the cow is a type of the stomachs that they have is more similar to ours. So the other things that you want to get rid of is vegetables that produce a lot of gas. So some of them are on there, like onions are one that I wouldn't add at this point. Of course, what else? There's other things, cauliflower here. So we have a list in the office of all these foods. We have a list I can share with you. If you email me on the very bottom, I'm going to tell you, if you join our newsletter, you also will get the events and just information. So make sure you get on our newsletter. So these are high oxalate foods too that wheat, potatoes sometimes are not good to add at this point. So all right, so then the third phase. So now we talked about what to add during the rebuilding phase. Now the third phase, this is after like maybe so now you're like in week, maybe week 1.5, 2. Okay, because if it's 10 days now you're on the like last 2 weeks of the month. Okay, so this is a re-inoculate phase, and this is when you're going to start to eat more. Okay, but you got to be very careful by adding the foods, because now you're going to add foods and you want to see what your body responds to. So I like scoring food. So if you're going to start adding maybe some, like maybe one vegetable that was not on that list and now you want to add it, you're going to start scoring day by day how you feel. So let's say you add, I don't know, cauliflower, and you do it for one day and see how you feel. See, like a score of 1 is that you didn't notice any bloating. So you're keeping a diary. You're basically making sure you're checking how you're doing. Score of 5 if it's moderate, mild. So you're gonna score yourself. So then you can start then adding another food, and then you know which ones. Like if you add dairy and wheat, and if you're gonna add wheat, I would say don't, but maybe gluten-free. But I'd rather you just stay away from wheat altogether. Wheat is so toxic, but have that very sparingly. Sourdough bread is probably the better one if you're going to have that, because it already is fermented. But basically you're adding some of the foods, but you add the most inflammatory foods at the very end. If you even want to go back to dairy, I would say do coconut milk if you can. But if you're going to do raw milk, then try again scoring some of these foods day by day and see how you're doing with that. Sometimes you'll know all of a sudden, as soon as you eat something, you're like, okay, this is not gonna jive with me. Like my kids, unfortunately, I'm Mexican. I love corn tortillas, but my kids can't have corn tortillas for some reason. They just flare up. So we've decided we don't have that. We have for tacos in my Mexiquito book. I make tacos with Parmesan shells, and so they love those. They can have Parmesan. It's an aged cheese. Typically, most cheeses, when people induce those, it's the bad kind of fake cheeses. You want the good kind of aged cheeses. Those are going to be a lot better for you. So that's basically that. Let's see. So some probiotics and prebiotics foods, because you're going to now add some foods that have a lot of good bacteria. So you have the fermented stuff we talked about, but some probiotic foods that contain just great stuff. Again, you can start adding back to that. And prebiotics are like vegetables, like chicory root, onion leek, garlics, all these dandelions. They actually feed the good bacteria as well. So you want to start adding that. So prebiotics, again, are some of these foods or these drinks here that feed the good bacteria. So that's basically that. This is, the benefits of bone broth. Again, just kind of going in here. It, helps because of everything that comes out from the bone. You have minerals. And that's one thing when you're in the fasting phase and you're doing the bone broth fast, you still want to add some minerals to your bone broth. So I add sea salt or Himalayan salt because you're going to want to replenish that. Even though the bone of the beef really lets go of a lot of stuff, you do want to add some minerals to that. So I have a question here from Judy. What about A2 milk? Make sure it's grass-fed. So the A2 milk comes from an A2 cow, which doesn't have casein. So that's where a lot of problems with casein come from milk. And A2 milk doesn't have casein. Just make sure that it's grass-fed. So that's, I love that one. It's just make sure the Boise Co-op carries great A2 raw milk. So if you go there, ask them for that. What else? So this is, going back to how bone broth started. This is an ancient healing practice. This is nothing new. I remember I'm Hispanic, so my parents used every bit of the cow. Like we used to, everything, even the head. We had the brain of the cow. I don't want to gross you out, but we had every part of the cow. But in ancient practices back, in the day, they had to eat everything, so they made bone broth, and so it has all the bone marrow in there, has all the nutrients that you want from it, and you can tell, like in this right here, everything, like even the collagen that you get from this is beautiful, not only for your gut but for your skin. So very good and beneficial in many aspects, but for your immune system too. So this is some ingredients, like making your own chicken broth. So like it says here, organic whole chicken, water, you have onion, garlic. You can, put whatever spices you want, ginger, sea salt. But the apple cider vinegar helps to unleach all those kind of minerals from the bone and dissolve all the cartilage from the ends, because you want that. You want that glycine and glutamine that gets expelled from that. Now, some people have the protein powders, the collagen powders. I'm more into making your own. I know that sometimes people want the quick and easy stuff, but I feel that food will never be, whenever you kind of mess with it man's way. It's better than nothing, but I would say just make your own. This company here, and you'll find this at Boise Co-op, Whole Foods, Kettle Fire, makes bone broth, and they have really great ingredients. I myself don't like the taste. I like the taste of the actual real deal bone broth that you make. But if you really just are not, you don't like the kitchen or whatever, then just you can go ahead and buy this. Again, it's up to you. I'd rather you have the real deal. And then you would add sea salt to this because they don't have enough in there. So you would add the sea salt, the minerals with that. I flavor it if I do have this. I had it maybe once or twice when I ran out of my broth, but I flavor it with garlic powder and pepper and cumin, and like I'll put some spices in there. So, okay. So now I'm talking about just your amazing neurology and how your gut has to deal with your nervous system. And this is where, as a chiropractor, we always go back to the nervous system because your brain is powerful, but you have nerves that innervate your gut. Your vagus nerve exits from the top of your spine. Your vagus nerve comes, it's called the vagabond. It's the one that goes all the way down to all your heart, your lungs, all your autonomic nervous system organs. And so it, like here, it shows you the wiring, how it goes to your stomach, innervates that, innervates your gut. So when you have nervous system interference physically, and you have subluxations, it's going to affect the way your gut functions. So we see many times they start getting adjusted. And that's what happened to me with my Crohn's. I started getting adjusted with that chiropractor, and my body started to function better. I started to go in, to the bathroom more normally, and but then I started to make changes nutritionally as well. But this matters. Also, your brain-body connection. So when you're stressed, you're in a sympathetic mode, your gut motility decreases because when you're stressed, your body doesn't know whether you're running away from a bear or you're just stressed because of COVID-19 or whatever. So your body sees it as a threat. So when you produce cortisol, what happens is your body's starts to shut down your gut motility, starts to shut down all these kind of processes. So you want to make sure that you remove interferences emotionally, chemically, and physically. Okay, so this is how the brain, it influences the motility, secretion, nutrient delivery. So this is how it's so intertwined and connected. So we see a lot of times people have gut issues, they become depressed, they become anxious because the neurotransmitters from serotonin are produced in the gut. Serotonin is your those happy kind of so when you have a lot of anxiety and it's going to be influenced by what's going on with your gut. So once you heal your gut, you're going to start to feel happier, you're going to start pooping better, and when you poop better you feel better. So that's where I love that song, beans are good for your health. It's just one of those things that you have to realize. But this is a continuum of 0% to 100% most of the time. So going back to this, 0%, you have no problems with your health, your baby. 100% is when your body starts to fail 100%, so death. So you have this continuum. Most symptoms don't occur until 60% loss of function. So this is the issue. Sometimes we're at 40% or 30%, but we have no idea that we have issues until the symptoms occurs. So people think, well, I was healthy a month ago, but all of a sudden I got these gut issues. But the problem is that these things don't show up till it's been there for a long time, or you have a stressor like a physical stress or emotional stress that turns it on. And then most people then rush, and typically what do? They go get a drug, or they said, like me, they were going to cut something off, but I got stressed. And all of a sudden, the antibiotics that the dentist gave me basically it just wiped me out. So symptoms don't occur until it's been there for a long time. So that's why you shouldn't wait till you have symptoms. You should start doing this. So whether you have gut issues or not, you should just start doing this to help heal your body. But this is when we look at the nervous system. People, when they have headaches or high blood pressure or inadequate sleep or memory problems, like all these things are already symptoms telling you, hey, you know what? There's something going on. Do something about it. So this is when we look at the spine, we want to make sure there's no interference to those nerves. And if you see here on this diagram, every nerve connects to those organs. There's problems with your spine, it's going to affect the way those organs function. See, I was a bodybuilder. I had no idea that I had spinal issues. I thought I didn't have spine. And I'm showing you my exam. This is like a healthy colon on the left of my screen, and on the right was mine. It was swollen, and this is what he showed me. He goes, you have this part of your anatomy where it's really raw, and that's what they wanted to resect. That's what they were gonna. I was gonna have to wear a colostomy bag. It's basically a bag where you go poop. And so this was me in my. I was 23, 24. Could you imagine being that age, having to depend on somebody to like be changing you and stuff? That's not supposed to happen. So luckily, like I said, I found somebody to help me, that he found out that I have issues with my low back. And I was a power lifter. If you guys don't understand what the things that come with powerlifting, you squat a lot. I squatted at that time 405. That's a lot for a person my size. But you know, you get into this phase if you want to look good and compete. So this was my spine, the one on the left. You can tell it's all crooked on the low back. So that's what was causing that compression to my nerves from the lower back that goes to the intestines. So, you know, he started fixing it. So this is my spine after I was done with him. So you can tell that it started to level off again. So this is where chiropractic is so key. If you don't have a chiropractor, look for one. Find one, start getting adjusted, but start doing these protocols. You know, turn your power on. We call it the power, is that power that God gave you to heal you, that's never left you, that's within you. And one of the best ways to that is just first step is getting adjusted, and then start adding the right things, doing these protocols. This is that slide I told you. I'm going to put a link here so you can go and actually find some of these like nutrients. Sometimes people want to take a capsule for this and that. Probiotics, again, I like live food, but if you can't handle like kombucha or these things, you can go to a link that I here will, which I'll put all these on there. But if you can see there, the store maxliving.com, you can go to products on maxliving.com and find the glutamine if you don't want to do the bone broth. There's Gut Renew if you don't want to do some of these recommendations. You can also supplement, and that's another way. So you do something, whether you want to do the protocols or you don't, you take some of these things. There's digestive enzymes. The digestive enzymes have things like oregano and some other enzymes that break down those biofilms, like apple cider vinegar. If you just can't do that, then supplement. So either food or supplementation, but you start acting on these things. So the other slide is, I just want to, did you have any questions right now? Because I'm going to talk about just the wrapping up here and what's next. I always talk about like what else can we do. So if you have any questions, I don't see any right now. So I have the opportunity to be a speaker at this Fasting Transformation Summit. Dr. David Jockers, whom is one of my partners, I partner with him in a lot of things. And so I'm a guest speaker in his Fasting Transformation Summit. Dr. David Jockers is well known, so is Dr. Josh Axe. He's a very good friends of mine. And so this Fasting Transformation Summit is going to talk about, there's about like, I don't know, 20 speakers that are international that are talking about just fasting, and autophagy is the biggest thing right now with helping your body heal from within. And so spiritually is one thing, but science is actually catching up to the Bible, and is also very beneficial. So Dr. Jason Fung, who is one of a medical doctor who is very well known for fasting, he's going to be on there. There's so many great speakers here, and I had the privilege to be one of the speakers. I, about 2 years ago, was having lots of stress because caring for my sister, and my sugar levels went really high. I started to implement fasting, what we call extended fasting, like a 7 to 10 day fast monthly, and reversed a lot of things. So where even now my body's able to handle things a lot better. And so I want to invite you to that. So there's going to be a link here to on this stream that you can go and register. This is a free summit, and that's going to be May 7th, I believe, May 7th through, it says that they're on the screen. I can't see it on here, but May 7th. But anyways, it's a summit that you can log on to for free. The other, next month, we're going to be doing these until we could get back into the office, but we're going to be doing these webinars online. And the next one we're going to have is our Healthy Women webinar, and we're going to talk about all ages of women, not only with hormones, but just everything like women's health. And I want to see if I can get an OBGYN speaker here. So I'm going to invite her to also be a guest speaker here. So we're looking forward to that. And so how many times can you reuse bones to make broth? I've actually done them 3 times. You know, the last batch is not going to be as nice. I think that if you can save some of that good quality fat from the first batch and then mix it into the last batch, because that first batch is going to be filled with lots of fat, you can scoop some out and then add some to the other ones. I think that it'll help you extend that. Good question. All right, so yeah, so I think this has been 1 hour, so hopefully this has been helpful for you, and sign up for my newsletter. I know that many of you you know, are already on there, but I send information all the time on here. And for my next newsletter, I'm going to add the bone broth recipe video. I'm going to add some of the PDF files so you can actually get some of this information. But this right here is my main holistic health link where you can sign up for my newsletter. Main holistic health is my virtual practice, and this is the link to sign up for my email newsletter. So I don't see any more questions. So God bless you guys. And lastly here, I just want to end with, you know, I know there's so much going on right now with the unknown. Embrace the unknown. I know that that's, oh, we got another question. What about the green juice? Is that okay instead of bone broth? Yeah, we can do it, but the green juice, Lorena, make sure it's the one that I gave you. The one that happens with a lot of sugar with green juice. Sometimes people add a lot of sugar to it, so I like doing the green juice that is more beneficial. Now, the benefits with bone broth is that you're going to get the collagen to reheal that membrane. So with the green juice, you're going to help the liver out to detox, but you need that collagen and that good fat to heal the membrane and the intestinal wall. That's why I really feel if you want to do some green juice along with bone broth, you can mix it up. In my eyes, you can. And then do the apple cider vinegar water. So yeah, so it's not unknown to God. Yes, I was going to go back to that. So we live in the unknown, but it's not unknown to God. He has a bigger plan, guys, and I know that He reigns. Jehovah Jireh, He provides. So just anchor to Him. And when you are anchored, you're building your house on rock. So when the winds come and the storms come, you will stand firm because you're built on rock. But when you build your house on sand, you know, the fact is that, you know, you'll be swept away. So just remain in Him, abide in Him, stay rooted. Use this time to honor Him, fast for Him, not just to heal your gut, fast for Him. And I hope this helps you guys. And really, last time I'm going to pray for you. Dear Lord, we're just so thankful for the people who joined us. We ask that you just continue to be with them and help them during this time. And that you just continue to show us what you need to reveal to us, and let us get out of the way. Have your way with us. Amen. Thank you guys for everything, and we'll see you at the office. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.